In this video, we're going to look at options for editing a video so you can remove some content using Camtasia. The advantages of using Camtasia on a video are that it gives you a number of different options for taking content out. So you can do things like trimming the beginning and end of a video if you've got some extra content or some dead space in there. You can do things like remove mistakes. So if you find that you say something incorrect or you need to correct something, you can do it that way. And you can also edit the audio to remove the background noise. The first thing we'll look at in this video is trimming. Trimming is a handy thing to know about because it will let you take the ends off your video. So if you have a little bit of extra time at the beginning where you were setting up before you started talking, or maybe a little bit of dead time at the end of the video, you can take those pieces off really easily. To do that in Camtasia, we can look at the screen here, and you can see that I already have a video ready to go. I've made a little class introduction for my students. And if we come down here and look at the bottom of the screen, we can see that there's a timeline here with all of my content on it. And that timeline's actually broken up into an audio track and a screen track. So the screen track has everything that's on my screen on it, and the audio track is anything that I've said. Separating it out this way is handy because you can see on the audio track when I'm speaking and when I'm not, based on those different levels there. So if you are looking to edit something out of your video from the beginning, if we look down here at the audio track, we can see that I don't really start speaking until about this point here. So what I can do if I want to take this extra content out at the beginning, I can come up here and grab this tool. Camtasia calls this the playhead, and I can drag the playhead along. Now, once I get close to the place where it looks like I start talking, I can still play that content to find that exact spot. So if I go ahead and click that, I start talking right about there. So if I back that up just a little bit, I can come up here, grab this green button, and I can drag to select. And then once I've got that selected, if I click on this scissor icon right here, just to the top left of that timeline, I can cut that content out. That takes it out of my timeline, and I don't have that dead space there at the beginning of the video anymore. Then I can do the same thing with the end. So if I come over here, I know that this is about the point at which I stop talking. I can click on play for you to get that exact, and then I can select the rest of that content, and again click on that scissor icon, and there it goes. Another thing that you can use Camtasia for is to remove any mistakes. So if you say misspoke and needed to go back and correct yourself, or even perhaps if you sneezed or coughed in the middle of your presentation and you want to take that out, these are all things that you can do relatively easily with Camtasia. Now, one thing to note about that is that that process is often a good bit easier if something happens, if you wait for a second, so that you've got a little bit of space to do your editing in fairly easily, and also so that it's easier to find on the timeline. So when I made my class introduction video, which you can see here, I had a section where I coughed, and then I paused for a little bit to recover from that. So I don't really want that in my final video, so I want to take that out. Now I know that the spot where I coughed is somewhere around here because I can see that significant spike in audio where I suddenly got really loud. If I didn't know where that was, I could still use playhead to come to wherever place I thought that that mistake was, and I can use the play function to find that. So I'm going to get that really close, and I'm going to do that now. And I know that that's right spot right there. So what I can do then is pretty much the same process I would use for trimming. In this case, I figured out where I want the start of the piece that I removed to be. And then I can see that there's a big silent space here, which is what I was talking about before. This makes it really easy for me to take that chunk out, and it's still fairly neat on either end because I'm not trying to cut something out in the space where I've been saying a lot of things really close together. So if I click on this red button here, I can select the chunk that I want to take out. I can click on the scissor tool again to cut that piece. And we can see there that that chunk of my video has come out. And if I move this away a little bit, we can see where I've done that because there's a splice in the video and it looks like it's been stitched together a little bit. The final option for editing that it's really helpful to know about with Camtasia is that the program does make available some tools that make it a good bit easier to do things like remove background noise from your video. So that can really help to improve audio quality and make things a little bit easier for students to understand. So we are once again looking at my video, and I know the audio quality isn't terrible, but I do know that there's a little bit of background fuzziness there. So if I'm working on my video, I can come up here to the tools at the top left of the screen, and if I click on the More option, I'm going to find an option called Audio Effects. And if I click on that, I'm going to have a couple of options available to me. The first one here is a great one to know about. It's called Noise Removal, and that's the one that takes out a bunch of that background noise and takes away some of that if you've got any sort of white noise happening in the background. It can help to take that out. And all you have to do is click on the Noise Removal, drag it down here to your audio timeline, your audio track, and then let it go, and it will automatically deal with that for you. Another thing that can be helpful to work with, particularly if you've recorded different chunks of video at different times, is the option called volume leveling. And volume leveling helps to make sure that the volume across different clips, or even across a single clip, is relatively consistent. So it means that students aren't suddenly going to get a loud piece and then a soft piece and have to adjust their volume. And you can apply that in the same way. So if I click on that, I drag it down here to my audio track, we'll apply that, and you might have noticed there that some of those levels leveled out a little bit. The final tool that you have here as an option, or the final two tools actually, are that you have a fade in and a fade out. So you can use these at the beginning of a video or at the end or even between clips. So say for instance you took out a chunk of audio in the middle because there was a mistake in it, but it still sounds a little bit rough because you maybe didn't have quite the space that you needed to do that. If you were doing something like that, you could use the fade in option to just sort of soften that out a little bit because it'll take those rough edges off things. And this is the same application as those other two options. All you have to do is click on it, drag it down, and you can see here at the end of that audio track that all of a sudden the volume on that goes from low to high. And if you need to adjust that, if that's say too long a fade in for you, you can drag on this little button here and pull that over so you have a much shorter fade in. And the same thing applies to the fade out. So I can click on that, I can drag it down again, and I can adjust that if I need to. And that will help make things just that little bit neater and sound just that little bit better for students.